Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Rosen, and you're listening to the Story Podcast. Today, I have on a super awesome guest, Mr. Chris Strayer. Chris grew up in Lititz, where he could be found hustling, shoveling snow, or sweeping floors to raise money for his first stage lighting purchase. His live event production career began at WJTL, where he produced local concerts and helped administer music festivals. With a passion for community service, Chris served as chief on the Lancaster Haz-Mat team for several years and continues to support community initiatives through volunteerism and services through his company, Stray Production Services. Stray is based on the Rock Lititz campus and offers a full complement of audio, visual, lighting, and event design needs, as well as a division focused on permanent systems integration. Chris lives in Lititz with his wife, three daughters, four chickens, three goats, one labrador, and one pet rabbit. Chris, how you doing today?
I am great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So you mentioned in the bio that you were really hustling as a child to do these production services. What was it in you that made you want to do these like production services?
uh, I don't know that the hustling as a child necessarily was because of wanting to necessarily be in the production business. I think it was more of just the desire to make some money, and we didn't grow up with much, and so if I wanted money, I had to figure out a way to make it. So um, my kids don't have the pleasure of experiencing some of the snowstorms like we did as a kid, but I found myself waking up bright and early, and I was out there shoveling the snow and trying to make the money, turn a couple bucks before I had to head to school after the 2 hour delay. Or if I was super fortunate and we were closed, I could be shoveling snow all day long. And I just have like tons of stories of different ways I made money as a kid. Because that's just what I had to do. If I wanted something, I had to work hard to get to it.
What do you think was your number one money making strategy as a kid?
Ooh, man, that is a hard question. I mean, I think the snow thing works pretty well. I mean, I can appreciate now that I'm older that I don't necessarily want to shovel snow, although I have a snow blower. So, and truth be told, I actually have a plow as well. So there's definitely some fun to that element. But when you would knock on the door of somebody's house and say, "Hey, I'll shovel your sidewalk for $5," I mean, most of them are like, "Sure, have at it." And so again, I could turn a good amount of money fairly quickly with a little bit of hard work with my snow shovel. But I actually remember as a kid, and I don't quite remember what year it was or how it all worked, but I do remember that I like saved enough money from shoveling the snow the one winter that I was able to actually go out and I bought an electric snowblower. And so then I strapped that electric snowblower to my dad's toboggan that he had bought us and strapped it there. And I had like a crate of extension cords, and I'd pull that around Lititz. And again, I'd use my electric snowblower now to like try to clean off snow on sidewalks and driveways. And then I actually earned enough money that I was able to invest into a gas snowblower. So I just had that natural progression of working hard and then buying something and working hard and buying something bigger and then just continuing to expand that. But I did that in many, many ways. I remember as a kid, like uh, going to Sharp Shopper with my mom and maybe having like $2 to my name, and I'd buy $2 of candy. Nowadays you can buy maybe a candy bar for $2, but back then you could buy at Sharp Shopper. You could buy half a dozen candy bars, and I'd lay them out on my dresser at home, and I'd put a for sale sign and sell them to my brothers and the neighbor kids, and try to make some money off of them all. So
You were a very hustler, very much a hustler at your age.
oh yeah. I mean, another one that I remember pretty clearly is Wilbur Chocolate, the candy store there. They used to sell, well, they still sell the candy bars, but they also sold the Wilbur bar in orange or mint. And for whatever reason, the orange and mint were always 50 cents compared to the regular candy bar, which is $1. So what I would do is I'd go down there with a buck or two. So let's just say I went down with $2 and I'd buy, two orange and two mint candy bars. And then I'd go knocking on doors, and might not have been telling the truth when I was selling them, that I was selling it for like football or basketball or something. And I'd sell them for a buck a piece. So naturally, if I went down with $2 and I sold, the 4 candy bars, all of a sudden I had $8 because I sold them for, I'm sorry, I sold them for $4, $2, and then I turned it into $4, and I go back and I buy more. And so I could like in a day, I could take that my $2 and like quickly, multiply that pretty quickly by just knocking on doors and selling these candy bars for, twice as much as I bought them for. Again, probably shouldn't have lied to him and told him I was selling it for baseball or football. It was more for my whatever thing I wanted to buy that week. But I always was trying to find a way to make a couple dollars.
It's incredible. So how did that mindset as a kid help you as an adult to build a business?
I mean, that's pretty much how we built the business. So Stray really started as a hobby. Back in 1999, I spent $200 and purchased some used lights. And I quickly figured out for basically $100 a weekend, I could rent those lights out. So I took that $200, I invested it into some used lighting from a local coffee house that was going out of business. And then I started renting it out for $100 a weekend. And then I just quickly continued to reinvest. I, for years, never took money for myself, never took money for my fuel, my time, nothing. I just took that money and put it back in. And then as time went on, I could buy something else and then buy something else and then buy something else. And really, that's pretty much how Stray started. We basically built it from $200 and a lot of hard work and a lot of sweat equity. And now it's not just me. There's a bunch of employees, and obviously, like you mentioned, we're at Rock Lititz, which is the production hub of for sure the Northeast, if not North America. And it's just been an interesting ride for sure since 1999.
So before that, you worked at the Haz-Mat team in Lancaster.
As I tell people, in a previous life, I was involved in the emergency services, and so I've done a lot of different things. I think you mentioned in the bio, I was also involved at WJTL and doing a lot of their concert stuff. But yeah, I volunteered for the county hazmat team. If I had to guess, that started in 2000, 2001, something like that. And I had a lot of flexibility with my schedule when I was working at WJTL. And so that allowed me to leave, excuse me, that allowed me to leave often in the middle of the day for emergency calls, which really I think was part of what, between that and then just my dedication to the hazmat team, really launched me into leadership there. So I started as just a peon that really knew nothing, and took a lot of the trainings and just continued to work my way up. And then when I got out of the hazmat business, that was probably almost 7 years ago now. I left as basically being the highest ranking possible, which I was the chief of the county's hazmat team for about the 6 years previous. So
I'm curious, what kind of stuff do those kind of like that does that team deal with?
We deal with everything. They do a lot of fuel spills out here on 222 out by the college here. There's obviously tons of traffic. So I spent many days on 222 dealing with a lot of tractor trailer accidents, but then also, chlorine leaks, ammonia leaks. The biggest incident that I was involved in that I think it was the one where I said, okay, I've plateaued. I'm done here. I don't need to do anything more. Was, if I had to guess, maybe somewhere around 2015, there was an incident in the Landisville area where a couple rail cars actually carrying pentane, which is kind of similar to propane. They were unloading and in the process caught fire. And so naturally the hazmat team got called to that. And of course, fire companies from all over the county were there and just dumping water on this thing. And when we got there, I was, for the first, 45 minutes or so, not just was I there as the chief for the hazmat team, but I was the only rail car specialist. So I was the only person that had been only one on scene who had gone to Colorado and taken rail car specialist classes for these type of incidents. And basically, what was determined was the only way to get this fire out was to, of course, cut off the source, which is pretty much how fire works. You cut off the source, the fire goes away. The problem is, and what most people might not realize, is with rail cars, the way you cut that source off is you need to get up on top of it to shut the valves down. So that involved myself, plus another guy coming in to back me up. And basically, we suited up in our fire gear, and I went across the plank that kind of goes up onto the rail car that was on fire and started turning the valves.
Sprayed.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I went up there. I did it as quick as I could. I got off of that rail car as quick as I could. Again, there's fire kind of ripping up the sides of the rail car. Um, and in time, it took a couple hours, but eventually did stop because the source had been cut off. But I remember calling my wife, who was fairly in tune with what's going on in the county. I'm sure she heard it on the news or something. And I just said to her, I said, "Hey, I just want you to know I'm okay, but you're definitely not going to be happy with what I just did." And like I said, that was kind of the plateau. I think that was the point where I said, "Okay, I've reached the top. I don't think I'm going to be involved in a much cooler incident, so to speak. And I think it's time to move on and work on my exit strategy." And by that point, I knew Stray was going to be moving to Rock Lititz, and I just had so many eggs in my basket that I needed to start clean the basket out a little bit and figuring out where the priorities need to be.
So you've bounced around on a lot of jobs. What made you settle down on production? Is that a love of yours or?
Some days. I mean, we do a lot of fun things and get involved in a lot of cool things, especially because of our relationship with Rock Lititz. But no, as a kid, I was always interested in lights and sound. I helped at church, helped at the coffee house we used to run at church with the lighting and the sound. And, so my involvement was there. Of course, in school, I was involved with helping with some of the musicals and the plays. And then when I turned 15, I was able to actually start helping with WJTL's concerts. They have a lot of volunteers that help them set up and tear down their concerts. I found out about this. And so I started actually helping with their concerts. I don't think they allow this anymore at Warwick, but back then, I would take days off of school to go help with the concerts. And my parents would just write a note that said, "Hey, he was on an educational trip." Um, I think it could be argued whether it was educational or not, but back then maybe. But fast forward to now, you could say, "Well, gosh, this is what this guy does," and so it proved to be truly educational and steered my direction for the future for sure. So
That's great. I mean, I wish schools took that into more account when I was in school. Like, music is something I want to do, and it's a valid option as well as anything else.
yeah, I think more and more schools are. I know. Again, I went to Warwick. My kids go to Warwick. I think Warwick's continuing to be very progressive when it comes to the music department. I have one particular kid who's very heavily involved in it. But again, I would agree with you. I think there's a lot of focus on sports and football and that kind of stuff as well. Um, and I think there needs to be equal opportunity for the music programs. And I really think in Central Pennsylvania, especially with a campus like Rock Lititz, where there's hundreds of people being employed there through various different companies. I think there needs to even be a more concerted effort in this area about the music and entertainment industry for sure.
Interesting, because from my perspective, I think they do really well here comparatively to where I grew up. I guess
Yeah, again, I think it can only be better though.
that's true. So, what is it like to be on Rock Lititz with Claire Audio Brother and all of these big names, essentially?
It's intimidating some days, to be honest with you. We we showed up on campus. We were one of the earlier businesses to show up on campus. We are still in Pod 2 right now, and when we showed up, we definitely felt like, my goodness, we're not supposed to be here. This is not the right place for us. Just because, again, you're rubbing shoulders with people that are dealing with Madonna and U2
Right.
and the Grammys and the Emmys, and we're just like, oh yeah, we're doing this fundraiser for so and so at the convention center, or we're doing this event at the country club. And so it's a completely different level. But I'll be honest with you, they have been nothing but gracious to us, have opened us with open arms, and have been just really, really good to us. In fact, just this morning, one of the president of one of the companies, one of the anchor companies that's a huge part of Rock Lititz, he emailed me this morning and said, "Hey, I'd love to just get together with you and have breakfast."
Mm.
My response to him is, I'm honored that you'd even do that. Like, he's got to have a million other things to do. He's got hundreds of employees. Again, a long list of high end clientele, and he wants to just break bread with me for 30 minutes or an hour and check in with me, and that's incredible. That's incredible. So it's a great experience for us all there.
That's awesome because just as the U2s are needed, so are the small festivals around Lititz or around the county are needed as well.
Correct, and I mean, and that's really what we've become the anchor for. What we tell people is, surely we will travel and we will do, work wherever the work is, but for the most part, at the end of the day, we just really prefer to sleep in our own beds. And so when you start talking about the events like, the Lidditz Craft Beer Fest, or another big event we do every year is with an organization called Horizon. They do a big gala in at the Lancaster Convention Center. And so when you start talking about all these different events that we're involved in, that's really what we do and what we love to be involved in and love to be a part of.
So, is your goal for Stray to be more a localized production company as opposed to a bigger production company, or?
So, I mean, that is definitely what we are. We are the local go-to. And so if you would call, say, Claire, which is the world's largest sound company, if you would call Claire and say, hey, I'm going to do this event in at the convention center, uh, 99% of the time, they're going to say to you, we're not the right company. Call our friends over here at Stray. Um, every once in a blue moon, there might be something that they for whatever reason perks their interest, but very, very rarely do they do that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we've just positioned ourselves to be the go-to for the local events, and that's really big or small. We're dealing with customers who might be doing a small thing where maybe they just need to rent a small production, a small PA or something like that, a little $500 thing, and that's fine. We're there to serve them and help them and make sure their event's successful. And then, of course, we're doing events that are more in that six-figure range as well. And so it's just all over the gamut. But yeah, for the most part, we're focused on that local production element. We get out of the area once in a while. We've got a crew next week going to Florida for an event.
Nice.
Last year, we sent a team to California for an event. But again, for the most part, we like being home when we can.
That's great. So if you had it your way, you would rather have it localized as opposed to nationwide.
Yes, for sure. I do believe so. But the other thing is, I'm a little bit different when it comes to business. I know there's a lot of guys out there that would say, well, you have to have this business plan and this business model and this and that. And I'm really just not that way. I'm really just focused on creating a great work environment and creating great customer service for our customers. And so we're going to just walk through the doors that open that make sense. And so we're not focused on, hey, we want to make X dollars a year, or hey, we want to start a branch office in Ohio, or whatever, whatever it might be. Now, if that door opens, hey, we're willing to pursue that, but we're just kind of just going to keep doing our thing and try to be the best we can at it, and just walk through whatever doors the Lord opens, I guess.
So, what are some of the most fun events or most interesting events that you've been able to be a part of, you think?
Very good question. Well, two of the more recent ones that we did that probably come to mind that are fairly sizable is we were involved in the governor's inaugural ball, which was actually held at Rock Lititz in January. So that was a fun event. That was a collaborative effort between ourselves and a bunch of other Rock Lititz companies, to the liking of Claire and Tate and Atomic. Trying to think who else was involved. There's a bunch of us. Four Wall. So again, we all came to the table. We had different pieces of the puzzle that we could provide, and then we all just made a great event happen. Of course, one of the bigger ones that Rock Lititz really hangs its hat on is we got involved with a vaccination center that was held here in Lancaster, and that's kind of a unique story. And I think it really, regardless of what your opinion is on the vaccine, at the end of the day, I think it just was a great collaborative event that was a bunch of people that you might not think being in a vaccination center would do, but we put our heads together and produced a great product. But essentially, the local hospital here, approached Rock Lititz and said, "Hey, we want to do this mass vaccination center. We obviously know how to put vaccines in people, stick people with needles." But gosh, when it comes to moving large quantities of people, when it comes to setting this up and tearing this down and having the manpower to do it, we're just not sure we have that. And when we started having, conversations internally, Rock Lititz has got some of that, that skill set. They're used to putting people through
Right.
festivals and concerts and so on. And not to mention, because of COVID right now, for the most for the most part, Rock Lititz was setting pretty idle as far as what work was coming in. And so it was a great time for some of the Rock Lititz companies to just come together and work with the local hospitals here and then just make a go of that. So
That's a great example of how to adapt for a production company during, the entire world shutting down for a few hot seconds.
yeah, and it wasn't a few hot seconds.
No,
It was longer than that for sure.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. COVID's scared me pretty hard, and rightfully so. I had to lay employees off, which was, one of the hardest things in my life to do. I certainly found myself crying at times, just scared, like, this thing that we've built, my wife and I, and many of our other employees, frankly, it might go down the drain really quick because of COVID. Because how are we going to pay our bills, and how's this going to work? They said 2 weeks, but I was smart enough to know this wasn't going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. 2
And
weeks.
so, it was a scary time. I'm not a huge fan of the word pivot. I think I heard it too much during COVID, but the end of the day, we did pivot. We
Mm.
we made a lot of changes, and we just knocked on a lot of doors, and much to my own surprise, on the other side of it, 2020 ended up being a fairly decent year for us.
Oh,
2021
nice.
was a stellar year. And so I think that's just because we were able to be that local go-to company. Excuse me. So when people had a problem or a situation, we were able to have a solution for them. And so you may have had an organization that says, "Hey, we're used to doing this gala or this fundraiser, but gosh, we can't do it the same way. How can you help us?" And we had plenty of options. Um, we are strategically in a place right now where we're one of the only companies in central Pennsylvania that own mobile stages. And so, again, when it came to schools saying, "Hey, we want to do a graduation, we really want to make this happen. We don't want to do something virtual. What opportunities, can you help us with?" And so we were able to do some outdoor graduations, some drive-in style graduations. In fact, I think we did LBCs here
Yeah.
the one year. Um, but then again, with those ones that wanted to do something virtual, we were willing to do that for them as well. And so, again, just being full service and just being able to help people, get to the finish line. That's kind of what we're focused on.
That's absolutely great. So, how have you seen COVID is kind of in the backseat a little bit now. How have you
Sure hope
seen
so.
yeah, I
Hope it
sure hope
stays
so
back there.
too. How have the changes from COVID affected your business now? Do you do a lot more of virtual stuff, or is it kind of back to the meat and potatoes, so to say, of the business?
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty much, for the most part, getting back to normal. Virtuals, it still happens where we might be streaming something in addition to live, but for the most part, it is not something that we are doing much virtual of anymore. Thank God. I definitely enjoy doing the live stuff way more, and that's certainly a lot more fun. So.
So, what do you think is next for Stray?
Again, I don't really know. We've grown leaps and bounds, in crazy, crazy amount of growth. And like I said, we don't. I try hard just to not. It's not that I'm driving like recklessly and I don't have plans. I have ideas sometimes in my head, but most of them are just really built off of relationships and just the doors that open, and just trying to examine, like, is this the right time with the right person or the right organization. Um, like I said, we're just going to keep doing what we do, and try to have a good time doing it, and try to serve our customers well, and really try to serve our employees and their families well in the process.
So, getting into a little bit of the faith wise, how do you as a Christian influence the because the music industry is not a very nice one sometimes. How do you as a Christian want to influence that or take part in that and help make the music industry a brighter place?
I don't know if this is just a thing for me growing up, but there was that song that I feel like we sung a lot, and I feel like it had like a high male voice part to it. But where the men are singing, "They will know we are Christians by our love,"
Mm.
and that's just really, really what I want Stray to be. Like, I want us to have people wonder what makes these guys different and these gals different, and really that's just the way we care for people. Trying to go the extra mile, trying to be, really a part of their team. We're not there just to provide something for them. Often I think sometimes people think, well, they're just there to be our sound company. But at the end of the day, whether we're there to be the sound company or the video company or the lighting company or the staging, like we're there to make sure their event's successful, and we're willing to go the extra mile to do that because at the end of the day, if their event's successful, they likely will call us again. If their event's successful, people who are there might say, "Hey, who did you use?" And it was Stray. So again, just trying to show love and kindness and generosity to our clientele and our customers is really what we try to do first and foremost, for sure.
So here's a question I like to ask all my friends in faith. Where do you find yourself most in tune with God?
Oh, geez, it's a hard. Can you expand on that one a little bit?
So another question that might lead well into this is what do you feel is worship to you? Like, where do you find yourself most worshiping God?
Man. Well, first and foremost, I love worship music, and I listen to it all the time. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with a local worship leader, just saying about how I want to find a way to do some kind of worship event locally some point, whether that's with a big worship artist or a local worship artist or whatnot. I love a good worship song.
I'll put one together.
There you go. So, and there's no shortage of worship music out there between WJTL and gosh, what's the other station now that's out there?
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't remember either. That tells you how good they are. But they are good. They play mostly worship music, and so there's tons of great worship music out there. I find myself listening to worship music honestly pretty dang often. I listen to it in the mornings, sometimes when I make a breakfast, louder than I think my kids want it to be, and listen to it in my truck fairly often as well. But like again, we just try to be examples of Christ through what we're doing. And we're not perfect. We screw things up. I think one thing that's challenging with a company like ours is it's all revolving around technology. And sometimes technology fails us, whether that's in a live event or whether that's a permanent installation. Like it's just not perfect. Technology is a lot like humans, and it's not perfect. But when something goes wrong, we try to own it. We try to fix it, and we try to again just put our best foot forward. Um, and so yeah, that's just kind of how we're showing love. And yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question really, but
Yeah, so back to the question.
yeah, sorry.
Where do you find yourself most in tune with God? Is it when you're putting on a really great show and you're just showing all the skills that God has given you, or is it when you're in the worship service and you're really just into it, or is that when you're in nature?
I don't get into nature much. I mean, I spend a fair amount of time laying in bed praying about things, and I spend a fair amount of time driving. And again, I think between worshiping and praying for stuff, I think that's really where I spend a lot of time with the connecting points. Um, what we do. Again, there's a lot of things that pivot on a successful event, whether it's the weather, whether it's safety. The guys and gals going to Florida next week, of course, travel, getting the equipment down there. So the truck driver, but again, just praying to God for grace and mercy, and just watching over our people. I think one thing that's really tricky. I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but one thing that's interestingly and tricky is I pretty much stopped praying about the weather. A couple years ago, I realized that praying for good weather is probably one of the most selfish things you can ask for. Because what I found myself doing is I'd be like, Lord, can you just give us great weather on Saturday? We have this event we need to do, and gosh, I really want just no rain, Lord. That'd be awesome. You can rain on Friday on somebody else's event, and it's okay to rain on Sunday on that other person's event. But the event I have to do is Saturday, so just give me amazing weather. And I just felt like it's selfish, because at the end of the day, we need rain to survive. Um, And so I've, of course, I don't love working out in the rain. I don't like it when our events get canceled or postponed because of rain. It really throws a wrench in what we do. But I've tried to just not pray that anymore. I just think that, if it's got to rain that day, it's going to rain, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to do our best to do, put our best foot forward. And if it's going to rain the next day, that's fine too. But again, we need rain to survive. So it's just one of those things I stopped praying for.
That's super interesting. A really unique perspective on that.
I'm sure people will tell me for some reason I'm wrong, but it just seems selfish.
Yeah, no.
It really does. And naturally, we've done events. Trying to even think the outdoor graduation we did here at LBC. I think there was kind of a hint of rain, or it rained in the morning or
So.
something. And again, we would really just prefer it to be dry. It makes our life a lot easier when we bring equipment back or cables back or whatnot, and they're covered in dirt or mud or whatever. It's just way more work for us. But we need to. We naturally need water to survive. Rain's very important to our life, and so asking for that to be held off for our event, but then rain on someone else's event just doesn't seem like showing love to people.
So we kind of talked about kind of some of maybe the worst case scenarios in terms of technology or weather. What are some of the funniest or maybe worst things that's ever happened on a staging event?
Oh man. Hmm. I don't even know if I could think of anything. Funny, the team at Stray, we're all about having a good time and joking around with one another. So I think we try to make every day funny. Uh, there's always jokes being busted left and right, and I think everyone understands we're just having a good time and really trying to enjoy ourselves. As far as serious or dangerous, knock on wood, I think we've got a pretty good track record. We try to take safety, first and foremost. I'm not saying people don't get hurt. We've certainly had our share of trip and fall accidents. If you do workman's comp research, you'll find out that's the most common.
Right.
But we try to offer a great product, and we try to do it in a safe manner. The only thing, here I can think of one. This was so embarrassing, honestly. I was actually helping set up for a wedding for someone locally in Lititz, and it was in their own barn. And we were stringing these cafe lights, which are pretty common now. People like those cafe bistro lights where there's like a light bulb every foot or two, and so we're stringing out all these lights and back and forth in this barn, and the way we rigged it up, it was proved to be maybe not the right way, and all of a sudden, this one cable or clamp or something just let go, and it just came crashing down, and all these bulbs broke, and I was
Oh
so
no.
embarrassed about, like, I'm like thinking these people are going to think we are like the most fly by night company that doesn't know what the heck we're doing. We went back and redid it, and as soon as it happened, I knew exactly what I'd done wrong. Learn from your mistakes, I guess. And I've not done it wrong since, and I try to convey that to the other employees, like, hey, here's the right way to use this particular piece of equipment. But yeah, that was pretty disheartening when that happened. It definitely egg on our face, but we were able to get it all cleaned up and put back up, and it was a beautiful wedding. And
Well, that's good. At least it didn't happen during the wedding.
correct, that would have been way more embarrassing, way more
Yes.
embarrassing. So
Well, it's always good to get humbled by some things like that, and you're absolutely right. Learn from your mistakes and don't let it grab you so much that you can't move.
yeah, I mean, again, we're human. We make mistakes, and the key is to identify that mistake, figure out how to not do it again, and move on. And there's not time. I'm not telling you there isn't times I get mad at myself, or I don't get, I get mad at our coworkers or my employees for stuff that shouldn't have happened. But usually, I try to just be like, okay, well, it happened. How do we make sure it doesn't happen, and how do we fix the problem that we now have encountered? Because whatever that mistake may be, and it's usually, thankfully, most of the mistakes aren't centered around like a safety thing. It's usually like, oh, we forgot to bring the stage legs for the stage or something. Those are usually the ones that drive me crazy. But we're only, we're human. We're not perfect. So
Yeah, things happen all the time, and that's just the fact of the matter.
it is the fact of the matter. So
So For anybody who's looking for a staging company, where can people find you guys at?
Well, we have a website, straypro.com. It's probably not the greatest one, but you can check it out. We also are on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook. And like you said, we're located at Rock Lititz. Um, and yeah, like you said, we do staging, lights, sound, video. We have a lot of decor stuff, furniture, that kind of stuff for some of the bigger galas and events. So we're kind of the go-to for a little bit of everything. So
I got a few more questions to ask you.
yep.
So, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you have maybe made within your career, and how can we prevent those for other people looking to make a career out of this?
Oh man. I'm not going to say I didn't make mistakes. I've definitely made mistakes, but I don't know that I try not to like harp on them too much,
That's
you
fair.
know? Like I last year we made a purchase that and there was no way for me to know at the time, but we made a purchase for a piece of equipment. We ended up not using it. I think we used it one time. It cost us a fair amount of money, and then this probably a month ago we sold it off, and we lost I don't know $10,000 or something in that process.
Wow.
It just didn't hold its value. So naturally, you look at that and you say, "Gosh, that was a huge mistake. I really wish that didn't happen." But harping on it's not going to change anything. You know, like again, when we make mistakes, I might get frustrated, I might get angry, like, but we need to identify like how the mistake happened, how do we make sure it doesn't happen, and then just move on. Because you know, harping on the mistake isn't going to change much. It's not going to fix anything.
So you've done multiple events. What is maybe one event that you haven't done but you might want to do outside of the worship one that you want to do?
You know, I was really looking forward. Most people don't realize this. We were going to do creation this year,
No.
and so I was really looking forward to creation. So I was hoping to do creation festival. I because of my involvement with WJTL, I have a lot of history with creation festival. I had been doing involved in the Creation Northeast Festival for oh my gosh, I went to the Creation Northeast and helped in some fashion for probably over 15 years, if I had to guess. I also went and helped with the Creation Northwest Festival, which was in Washington State. I helped with that for, I don't know, 8 years, including the first year. So I was out there helping get it off the ground. And so I have a lot of fond memories from Creation, not to mention I met my wife at Creation. And so I was really looking forward to Stray providing all the production services this year. And of course, then the plug got pulled on that. But looking forward to seeing what Creation might do in the future. I know they're having conversations about maybe some one day events or something. And so anxious to see what they do there. And hopefully we'll get the opportunity to be involved with them with that. So
That'd be a lot of fun. Creation is a lot of fun.
yeah, definitely. And again, you know, it definitely wasn't as big as it used to be. We did the fringe stage last year, and it was a lot of fun. But again, doing the whole event this year would have been phenomenal. But yeah, a lot of memories, and we'll just see what happens, what doors open.
So if you could give a piece of advice to someone who wants to start a production company or wants to get into this field, what would that be?
Work hard. Yeah, work hard. I I don't want to sound like an old person that says the young kids don't want to put the work in, but I do feel like that is
I would agree with you.
is often the case. You know, if you ever have the opportunity, I don't know if you've ever interviewed Fred McNaughton at all.
I have.
Okay, well, if you ever talk to Fred, it probably it didn't happen on the podcast, but if you ever talk to Fred about how I really got my foot in the door there, you know that and how I built the company is just an example of hard work. You know, essentially at JTL, like I said, I started volunteering with their concerts. And then from there, I did like a high school internship where I got some credits to be a volunteer throughout the week, and just kind of got my foot in the door. And so, you know, I was willing to do anything and everything when I was at JTL. I got my foot in the door by helping empty the trash and vacuum and fold letters, and you know, I was just willing to do something to stay there. And so eventually, I became a DJ. And then from there, I don't know if I wasn't good or whatnot, but I was not a DJ anymore. That I don't think it's because I wasn't good, but I got more involved in the concert end of things, and some folks left. And so, you know, when I left WJTL, I was, you know, pretty far up the food chain. Not that not that that really needs to be everything and anything, but again, I went from the guy that was emptying the trash pretty far up the food chain, and that was just from hard work, being willing to help, being willing to do whatever. And I think you can tell from the stories about the candy bars and the snow blowing and lawn mowing and all that kind of stuff as a kid, and then Stray just saying, "Hey, I'm going to take this $200 and I'm just going to turn it over and turn it over and turn it over and turn it over." Like that's what I did, man. I put a tons of sweat equity into it, and so I think there are people that may look at me today and say, "Hey, he drives a nice truck, or he might have this or might have that," but that was not without, like, a ton of work. I commonly work 100 hours a week. That's pretty common, and, I don't even know the last time I had, like, a 7-day vacation. Like, I might take a day or 2, an extended weekend, but I put a lot of energy into it, and so, I got to where I'm at from just, from wheeling and dealing and working hard and pouring my life into it, and I think if you wanna get somewhere, that's usually what it takes.
Let's say that's kind of the idea of the American dream is to, pull up your bootstraps and just do it. And
Correct.
it's very much still alive. You just got to do it.
Correct, and I think a lot of people just think like, "Well, I went to high school, and then I went to college, and then I did like, I deserve this," and it's like, "Well, no, that's not quite how it works," and
No.
frankly, there are people too, I should mention, that work really, really hard and don't get further, and that's okay, like,
Yeah.
that's totally okay, but again, like, that hard work, often, you reap what you sow, and so you put a lot of work into it, often you'll get something out of it.
And if it's not, success, it's a lot of learning.
Correct, and that I have learned a lot, so
So you mentioned having all of the, working 100 hours a week, and this is a question I wanted to ask you anyway. But how do you balance your family life and just normal living?
it's hard. It's not easy, and honestly, it's really hard in this profession. I know a lot of other, companies at Rock Lititz struggle with that. When you think about some of these other companies that will they'll go out on the road for 40, 50, 60 days at a time, and they don't see their families hardly at all during that time. It's a hard thing to do. I'm pretty fortunate now that we have a good number of employees. The company is, like I said, just growing immensely, and so I have a lot of and have surrounded myself with a lot of great people that I can rely on. So I can say, "Hey, I need to go to this school thing, or I need to be a part of this meeting, or whatever it is." So I've got some people that I can lean pretty heavily on to make that happen. Also, it's getting a little bit better because my kids are older. So,
Mm.
my oldest daughter, she's employed by us. She's still in high school, but she's employed by us. So, she'll come to work with me some. And then the youngest two, they get drug into it, whether they like it or not. Um, but even like this past week, there was a little event happening at a local venue, and so I was there actually tearing down a little sound system in the morning, and I learned a little bit about this event they were doing, which was a fundraiser and it was a bingo thing, and it was on Sunday, and it was pouring down rain on
It
Sunday, and
was.
I just thought, this sounds fun. What am I going to do today? It's raining all day, and so I went home and said to my middle child, my oldest one had homework to do, and the youngest one was off doing some dance stuff. She's heavily involved in the dance academy locally, and so I went to the middle child, said, "Hey, want to go play bingo?" And so we went and helped a local organization, and got to spend time with her doing that. So it's different, but you got to be you just got to put the time in, I guess. And I'm also fortunate and unfortunate some days, but I work with my wife, and so we see each other at work often, and then we get to spend some time on the nights and weekends, maybe taking walks and just reconnecting or going out to dinner or whatnot. So
That's awesome that you can bring your kids into some of the events you do. That's awesome.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if they're gonna want to stay involved or if they're just going to go on to other interests, and that's fine either way. I'm not going to push them one way or another. If they want to get involved in the family business, I think we would welcome that. But I've also made it pretty clear to them they have to work their way there.
Right.
They're not coming in and expecting to get to the top. The oldest that works with us right now, I mean, she's helping fold, pipe, and drape, and tearing this down and tearing that down, and she knows that like she's not just going to step into this and be granted the keys. That's definitely not going to happen.
Well, yeah, because that's how businesses fail, really.
Correct. And again, I worked hard to get there, and she needs to work hard if she wants to stay involved. And if she doesn't, that's fine too. I'll
Yeah.
support her whatever she wants to do.
And more importantly, she needs to do the work so that way she knows what she's doing.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So how do you deal with burnout? Oh, is that a thing for you, or is that
No, it's definitely a thing. Yeah, it's definitely a thing, and I probably don't deal with it well. Honestly, um, I probably need to find a new way to deal with it. I used to deal with it by going to the diner. That was like my go-to.
Mm,
Um, I found a lot of joy and peace in going to the local diner and just sitting down and enjoying a meal by myself and just like decompressing and like that was my thing, having a sweet tea and an omelet, you know. I've since tried to really back down on my diner intake. It's probably not the best for my health at this age, and so I'm not saying I don't go there, but I mean I was going there pretty often, and I've tried to really back down on that. So right now, probably the best way I deal with burnout is just trying to relax a little bit. Like I said, going for walks with my wife and um, yeah, just take advantage of the downtime when I have it. So,
smelling the roses is
you know what? In this business too, yeah, I'm sure you've heard the terminology. You got to make hay while the sun shines, and that's really how it is. We're certainly in a busy season right now. Um, I
say
think
summer's just kicking up.
yeah, spring's always busy, graduations
Yep.
and fundraisers and banquets and that kind of stuff. And so we're certainly in a busy season right now. January, February, March, we're a lot slower. So I took some more time to work on some stuff around the house and just get some other stuff done that I wanted to get done, knowing that when it becomes nicer out, I might be out, making hay. But we have a pool too, so that's pretty nice to be able to come back and long day and jump in that, or just hang out for a little bit before I gotta go back to work. So
Oh, this has been a great time. I've really enjoyed this.
yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm honored that you asked me. I'm not sure that I'm that interesting, but
No, I had a great time.
I
I learned a lot.
I think Fred's more enjoyable than me. And you mentioned Jess Zimmerman. She's definitely a super talented person. And now I've got to go back and listen to her podcast so I can see what she said. She'll listen to it first, so I knew the fine pointers of trying to compete with her on numbers. But
Was there anything else you'd like to say about Stray, or any events that you coming up that you would really like to promote?
no, I don't think so. Again, we're here to serve the local community. If there's something that you're interested in having us do, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to explore it. And I guess the only other thing we didn't really talk about is really we have a whole division of guys that do installation work. So even as we sit here in Studio B, Stray was very instrumental in the Fry Center here, in the installation of the radio studio and the television studio. And so that's just another area, and that actually has probably seen the most growth over the last couple of years. So we're working with a lot of local churches and theaters and whatnot, installing permanent sound systems and lighting systems and video systems and flying rigs and all this fun stuff for the local groups. And so that's definitely a division that if your church or organization is looking to purchase some new equipment, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to help you in that process as well.
Well, this has been the Podcast. My name is Corey Rosen. You can find all about me and my projects over at CoreyRosenProductions.com. This has been Chris Strayer of Stray Productions. You can find it at StrayPro.com.
Yep.
And upcoming, we have some really cool things going on. This next week is packed with guests. This Friday, we have Mariah Corley. She's a pianist, a composer, a classical composer from the area. She comes on at 12 o'clock Friday. This Saturday, we have a rapper from the local area, Lodi Lodi. And we have our songwriter studio where we grab 3 or 4 other songwriters or musicians in the area. And we come together, and the challenge is to write a song within an hour. We had our first one Monday, and it went a lot yesterday. It went very well. I'm super excited for it. So I'm super excited for this this one on Saturday. Next week we have Debo coming in at 10 o'clock. He is one of the most flamboyant funk musicians around in the area. I'm really excited. He came to the CPMAs dressed as a supervillain, and it was very entertaining to watch and hear his music. So I'm super excited to hear about all of all of his processes, and he does everything with all of his songs. So I'm really excited to see how he manages all of that, because it's hard. And then that's pretty much it for this next upcoming week. If you want to reach out to us, please be sure to go over to CoreyRosenProductions.com. With all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. We will see you guys later. Bye.